More questions than answers.
Radio Command's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another wonderful, terrific Tuesday's edition of Talk Today. We have our good friends from the Department of Labor and Pensions, the Labor Investigations Unit in particular, going to join us. And we're going to be talking about a very, very timely topic. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks very much for joining us. And I'm very grateful that every time we get a chance to welcome our wonderful, talented, determined, and dedicated civil servants to our studio, you see the epitome of public service and that untiring effort to ensure that our community is served with excellence. The Deputy Director over the Department of Labor and Pensions, Ms. Loa Linwood, thank you very much for coming on, and to your entire team for being a part of this continued discussion. So good afternoon to you, Mom.
Good afternoon, Sterling. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. I must say we've been here a few minutes and we're already having fun. Thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
So I guess we can start with a few quick introductions to my colleagues that have joined me today. I guess as you've said, my name is Laval Linwood. I'm the Deputy Director for Labor. I'm accompanied today by Senior Labor and Pensions Inspector for Gratuities, Mrs. Rankin Ricketts, and Senior Labor Officer Dwayne Ford. So both officers are quite seasoned regarding the Labor Act and more specifically as it relates to gratuities. So we are certainly in great hands today.
Well, I really appreciate each of you coming because I think too many times we don't necessarily always understand exactly what is transpiring.
Right.
Either as employers and certainly as employees. And with this opportunity, maybe we'll be better informed. And given that the country is increasingly welcoming back more and more visitors to our shores, maybe more and more of us are going out and engaging in hospitality properties as we have a wonderful meal with our families, or we're taking a well-deserved extended weekend vacation, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So now, gratuities, maybe we can start by asking as well. We hear about this word gratuity, but what is it? And is there any specific legal definition? Is it distinguishable from something else when you show appreciation to others who've given you some
Absolutely.
sort of level?
And that's a perfect starting point for us, Sterling. And again, we want to thank you for the opportunity to come today and shed some light on the subject of gratuities. So one of the questions that frequently comes to us, and I think one of the issues that we have, is the definition of gratuities. What is a gratuity? And there's confusion as it relates to gratuities and tips.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Ford if he could just elaborate a little bit on that for us in terms of what gratuities are, what the difference is between tips, those persons that are eligible, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. So good afternoon, listeners. My name is Dwayne Ford. I'm a Senior Labor Officer. First, I'll start out with the actual definition as per the Labor Act 2021 revision. Gratuity means any money or thing of value collected or received from a customer or client of any business which is in excess of the basic contractual liability of that customer and is or is purported to be collected or received in respect of the quality of service afforded to that customer and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing includes any sum whether collected on the basis of a fixed percentage or otherwise levied on the amount charged to the customer of any hotel, condominium, restaurant, licensed premises, or other place of entertainment and expressed to be in respect of service. Now, to explain that in layman's term, basically gratuity is a sum of money which is paid for out of gratitude for service appreciated.
Yeah, if I could interject there as well, and I'm so happy that he shared that definition. However, I think for the general public, what we try to do is break that down in simple terms, as Mr. Ford was just about to explain. Gratuities is any amount that is added, included in your bill as a patron. A tip, if I am happy with the service that the waiter has provided, I leave a tip on the table, that goes towards that waiter. Now, the gratuity pool that's included on the bill is management attends to that, and there's an approved scheme in place that says how those funds should be distributed amongst employees.
And who's entitled to it and the like.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and this is and I'm so happy we started here because this is something that even myself and, Sash, myself, Dwayne, we go out and we do our spot checks. If I leave a tip on the table because I'm happy with the service that Mary Jane provided to me, that's for Mary Jane, right? Now, what we've seen is the Mary Jean and her other colleagues, the waitresses and whoever else is, engaging in the collection of gratuities would pool those tips together, whether it be at the end of the night, at the end of the week, however they choose to do that. But that is at the discretion of the employees. So in simple terms, the gratuities, management has their hand in that. Tips, management does not.
Okay. So, and I certainly appreciate it, and we're not trying to belabor it, but maybe part of the confusion somewhat may have. So if you'll help me to understand, we go out for a meal, it's $100. The gratuity is X%. Let's make it easy, 10%. So the bill now is 110, and you leave that. Two things. At the end of the day, let's make it easy. You're using your electronic payment system, so there's no cash. But you decide, I got to put another $5 or $10 or $1 or how much on the table. That $10 is part and parcel of the bill that you put in is gratuity that is shared up, and that extra cash that you put on the table, the wait staff can keep it all for him or herself, or if choose, share it amongst the other team.
Correct.
Right. Sounds fairly simple.
One would think.
So let's then ask a couple of other things. We know some establishments have no gratuity included. They give you a little card, the recommended amount is between this % and that %, and they'll even calculate it for you based on sums. Is it that the gratuity is legal and contractually binding, or if for whatever reason the customer says, I don't wish to leave any, so give the $100 example, the bill it was $100, I'm only leaving $100. Thankfully, some people leave a lot more an extra, but I'll come to that in a second. In that case, is a gratuity something that is obligated on behalf of the customer to pay because it's been presented as part of the bill, or is it discretionary?
Great question. And I'm going to have Ms. Sasha enlighten us on that one for us.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Senior Labor and Pensions Inspector Sasha Ricketts. Just to answer your question, Section 35(5) of the Labor Act 2021, it actually defines that gratuity is not binding, is not a binding agreement. So while it is placed on your bill, and for us, I'm quite sure normal, regular people don't pay attention to this, but because we enforce it, we get excited when we get our bills at the end of eating a meal because we want to see. So, it is exciting for us, and I guess because we're that passionate about our job and we want to make sure everybody's compliant. But at the end of the day, even though it's on your bill and it's saying, okay, your bill is $100, there's 15% gratuity added on it, it does not necessarily mean you have to pay that 15% because if you're not happy with your service, you're not mandated or obligated to pay that gratuities. And I don't think a lot of people understands that. But again, we don't want people to now turn away from paying it, because if you're satisfied and you're happy with that service that is being provided to you, then by all means pay that plus more, because you're helping our service employees.
Exactly. And I appreciate you referencing that. That's kind of why I was trying to get back to the point of saying, okay, pay with the card. We know, again, just use the electronic payment system. The person has been presented with a bill, very happy with it. Just let's use a 15% gratuity, which seems to be average. And now the bill is $115, but the person says, you know what, consciously, I'm going to add another 10 or another 15 or X dollars. Again, on the payment, the card goes back, and when you get it, you see that it's been adjusted upwards for that extra sum that you've added. That extra sum now has been collected through the restaurant, for example, payment system. It's not physical cash that you left. Does that extra sum that you intended potentially for that added service now divvied up to that employee, or is it that goes part of the gratuity pool? How does that play in?
Well, it wouldn't be a part of the gratuities, because at the end of the day, what they have to do, they have to provide us with a gratuity report. So their POS system actually have it calculated to show, okay, we've collected $10,000 in gratuity at the 15% rate. That is all we are actually interested in receiving reports on. So any additional sums paying with that card, that employer should ensure that that money is taken away and given to those staff members, that extra $10 that was written onto that. So the 15% is separate, that goes in the gratuity report. The extra $10 is that goes directly to the employees. No report has to be given to the Labor Department.
And I appreciate that. And the reason why I ask is that, I thank you all for providing the information relative to our topic, so that it helps us. I know of a situation way back when, and the particular employee being not just competent, diligent, and very experienced in the industry, and seemingly very knowledgeable about the law, relayed a scenario where one of the managers in their particular establishment had a difference of opinion. She said her view was this, and the gratuities is X, you share up according to this, and only these people presumably are entitled. And we would like to maybe clarify that at the next discussion. But she said, that extra $30 that was given, as part of the card, that's mine to do with. And she said she had a prolonged and protracted discussion with that manager. She was seemingly correct in her interpretation of it.
Correct. And, just to chime in there, what we've seen, and I can tell you from personal experience, when that happens, and I've tried this myself just to see. I do this quite often. I think what's happening to me now is everybody's now recognizing who I am, so it makes it a little difficult.
I'll do it for you next time.
But I'll try that, and what you'll find is they'll say, just like Mrs. Ricketts explained, the gratuity collected is 15%. If you choose to leave additional, then we would prefer, that if you have the cash, that you go that route versus having it applied to the card. Because this is where you then find yourself in the same position as this individual, having difficulty in getting those funds.
And given that, whatever the reason is, many of us are increasingly using cash, going cashless, right? So with that makes it challenging, and I can see that employee who is, let's say, knowledgeable about the system may be perceived by some as being other less than fair. Here's where the understanding comes into play. All right, when we come back from the break, could we also, as we continue talking about gratuities, what's the process, who's entitled, and some other things? And
absolutely.
That new restaurant that you want to open, well, these are things you need to know. All right, we're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Please stay tuned.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine. a caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Give your space a refresh with the Spring Savings Sale this April at Tomlinson Furniture and Mattress Gallery. Sofas, sectionals, and love seats. Take 20% off the lowest price. 3-piece queen bedroom sets in solid wood. Take 20% off. 5-piece dining sets, TV stands, coffee tables, and wall shelves. Take 20% off. Sheets, pillows, fragrance warmers, and sprays. Take 15% off. Great savings on mattresses, foundations, and frames. Indoor and outdoor furniture. The Spring Savings Sale. In-store only. All April long at Tomlinson Furniture and the Mattress Gallery at Tomlinson Building, Walkers Road. Check our Facebook or Instagram for sale flyer details.
It's the right time and this is the place to be.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And if I might, in our wonderful team of civil servants, don't feel too embarrassed, can I say through you, a very public thanks and appreciation for the tireless work that you guys do. Many, unfortunately, and this is where one of the media houses, before they killed Ian, they were called Caymanian, was very derogatory, I think, in this approach to the civil service. And from what I've seen, the diligence, whether in planning or lands and survey or in the departments, I'm in the building some weekends, and next door the lights are on and the people are home, and you guys are working tirelessly. So thanks very, very much.
We certainly appreciate that, Sterling. And if I could just add a really quick note there for, my team, the entire department, like we were talking about during the break, these guys are amazing. They do really great work. I know you had our inspections team on the other day, amazing bunch. Yeah. So we certainly, on behalf of the director as well and the senior management team, we also want to put that out publicly, that we do appreciate the work that the team is doing. Yeah.
But thank you all. And this is where I say this, not currying favors. There's nothing here for me other than an acknowledgement that if I too work hard, I can be included in the hard-working group. And you guys do great, man. We have a wonderful team in this country.
Thank you.
And we're speaking to the Deputy Director for Labour, Ms. Lavalin, which she has two of our great colleagues join us, and the Senior Labour Inspector for Pensions as well, Ms. Sasha Rankin, Ricketts. I got to remember to hyphenate that for you. And maybe he's probably going to soon now be in competition for the good folks over at EMT. For the Mr. Physique of the Year, between him and let me leave the EMT staff alone, because I want them back in the studio again soon. But Mr. Dwayne Ford, the Senior Labour Inspector, and this is where, if you love your job, the enthusiasm and the smile and the joy is so evident. We come into a studio like this. Sometimes it can be a bit nerve-wracking, and you guys are just competent, and it makes us feel comfortable. But we're just asking prior to the break, when we're talking about gratuities, it can be this seamless thing. It can be something that many people do without even questioning. And the more that you know, sometimes it can help to inform. We identify what the law says is gratuities. By general application, we pretty much understand. But then it's collected, the distribution, the registration, the entitled sort of pool. How does that work?
And Sterling, there's a lot of work that goes into that behind the scenes. So we now have a dedicated senior labor inspector, Mrs. Rankin Ricketts, that's with us today. So we do appreciate her taking the time to come with us to give us a bit more feedback on that process. So I'll have her start, and of course I'll jump in if necessary.
Okay, so when it comes to registration, again, we try to make sure that all establishments are compliant. We know that starting a business, you're not completely aware of all of the requirements that you have to have in place. But we do have some people, and I think it was just yesterday that we got a inquiry from a restaurant. You know, they're looking to open, they want to find out, they're collecting gratuities, how it's supposed to be done. We love those sorts of people that come to us, and you know, we help them to ensure that they have all the necessary information to register with the department. The application is very, very simple. Like, we've simplified it like as far as we could possibly do. And the process is simple. Like, I am there every step of the way. So anytime there's questions, concerns, pick up the phone, call, come in, see me. Well, before coming in, see me, call to find out if it's okay. And email, you know, we assist every step of the way. So the application, you know, it just gives us details of what your intention is. And there's a checklist that they have to provide us with additional information just to make sure that, one, you know, the company is definitely registered, because we don't want to give approval for a company that is not in compliance with other government agencies. And once you have a trade and business license, you're going to then identify to us your proposed gratuity methods. Now, we have three methods that has been authorized so far. We have the shift point method, the hourly method, the hourly point method, and the volume of sales. So to help organizations determine which one of these works best for them, we've actually provided them with a sample. And they can go through that with the employees and decide what works best for them, you know, what they think is the fairest distribution method for their employees. And the key thing is to note that all gratuities collected has to be distributed back to those employees. It's not, you know, 5% for the company and 10% for the staff. Every single dollar that is collected should go back out to those service employees. So once you provide us with all of your documentation, you know, you have to ensure that when you walk into a restaurant, there should be some sort of sign to say gratuities are 15% collected or added to your bill. So if you only walk in with $100, you will be aware from the time you walk in that door that, oh, wait, I can't spend $100 because I need to add gratuities to it. So the law does say that you have to have that signage, you know, readily available, and it's visible. So while it don't have to be a sign per se, but you know, they have it on your menus, and anyone,
that's okay,
right? So anyone who goes to a restaurant, you would normally see it at the bottom saying 15% gratuities added, and it's not just 15% because you know, the percentage does vary, and we have seen it increase, lately. So once we have those documentation, you know, they provide us with evidence that they're being in compliance with the law. They actually provide us with a sample report, because at the end of the day, what happens is that I then have to, after registration, review all of those reports that is provided to the department to make sure that they are compliant, and we are satisfied that what has been collected has then been distributed properly to those service staff. So we take all of the required information, and once we have everything that, you know, the checklist says that should be provided to us, we then compile that information and send it to the director, because the director is the only person in the department that can actually approve that. Now, I then send it to Ms. Laval, who just do a double check for me, just to make sure that all of the required information has been provided by those entities. And then it's passed on. Once I get her blessings, it is passed on to the director for his final approval. When we get that approval, we send them that approval letter. And they should be displaying that approval letter so everyone knows that they have been given approval by the director. And they should not be collecting gratuities unless they have been given approval by the director to do so. So we've been trying to work and, you know, make sure that everyone that is collecting gratuities is definitely registered with us.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think for me, I just want to, again, impress upon any establishment, as Mrs. Ricketts has just said, if you are collecting and you do not have a registered gratuity plan, you need to stop.
And come see me.
And you need to contact us. I mean, we in no way, our main objective here is to educate persons, businesses, and ensure compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually had a few instances lately where, like I said, I think everyone knows I'm a socialite, so I visit places on Friday evening, and I take note of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do go out, which we have just recently. Go out to an establishment and we note that there's gratuities added to the bill, and we know for sure that the director has not approved. Mm-hmm. We will advise the manager accordingly. Mm-hmm. I just had this happen to me over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And, then I take a picture and I message Sasha, like, Sasha, you need to note this, make sure that we get back to them and we get it.
This is part of enforcement, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And a lot of the businesses, like restaurants, for us, we work a 9 to 5. Mm. So a lot of the, and I hate to put infractions or a lot of the information that we find is after hours.
But part of due diligence, right?
Oh, yeah.
So let me then ask then, we talk about the percentage gratuities. We know it was sort of 10%, 15%, 18%. So it's been changing. Is it for the particular establishment to decide what percentage of gratuity it wants to collect? And if it decides, we're going to collect 30% gratuity, for argument's sake, are they okay to do that? It's not by law. We don't, as we establish as customers, we're not obligated to leave it. We can choose to leave more. But if there's some that's determined as a percentage, is it for the establishment to decide what they want to collect, if they want to even add gratuities?
Right. So what normally happens is that when somebody is approved, say they were approved to collect 15%, but they now want to seek to increase it from 15 to 18%, they have to present an amendment to the department, and they have to justify why they want to increase that. And we then review all of those documents. I do a report, submit it to Ms. Laval and the director for their consideration, because it doesn't mean that because you apply or you said you want to do it means that it's going to get approved. Mm-hmm. We have to take everything into consideration, especially the staff members. We have to ensure that they're not being disenfranchised in any way. And, not one of the things that we also take into consideration is that you have to be reporting timely. Mm-hmm. So if you're not submitting your reports, but then you want to increase to 18%, that's an application that will not go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, well, there you go. And you referenced, the three methods: shift, hourly, and of course the volume of sales. Again, is it for the particular establishment to decide which one of these works best for the establishment?
Yes, and I'm actually happy that you brought that back up again, because even though we have those 3 approved schemes by the director, the regulations actually do speak to gratuities being distributed based on hours worked. Mm-hmm. So there's that method as well. Yeah. So yes, the establishment would submit their application based on their their numbers. So the long and short of it, the numbers have to make sense. Right. So if you're expecting to bring in X amount profit for that year, and then you want to add an additional 15, 16%, whatever, on to that, whatever you present to the department has to make sense in terms of the effect that has on employees as well.
And speaking to and you can determine whether this is for another discussion or even whether this form is appropriate, but 2 things that we've heard from people. One is when it comes to gratuities, some establishments would try to use that as part of their salary, and other establishments will say, well, we've found that employees have had differences of opinion relative to when they're at work, because these are lucrative days or these are lucrative hours, and they're not part of that pool. So when the gratuities come around, they didn't work that day, they didn't get a share. How does that fit in those 2 things?
Right. So I think Mr. Ford can assist us there in terms of maybe giving us a bit of information regarding the minimum wage and how that comes into play. One thing I will say, though, when it comes to scheduling, that's an internal procedure that has absolutely nothing, to do by legislation. So it does. We have seen, situations where you may have, let's say, 25 service employees, and depending on the way they're scheduled, their concerns there that they are being disenfranchised. John Brown is getting 10 hours, I'm only getting 15. So obviously that affects the gratuities that I take home, depending on the scheme that is in place. So I'll leave it to Mr. Ford just to give us a bit more information as it relates to the minimum wage aspect.
Okay, so currently the national minimum wage is $6 an hour, but in relation to businesses who are collecting gratuities, they can pay a basic wage of $4.50 and then use the gratuities to actually bring the salaries up to $6 or even more. And that's one of the good things about working in the industry like this that collects grants is you are able to, earn a high salary from the gratuities that you make. So the effort that you actually put in at work in relation to, the service that you provide, your salary can move from $6 an hour up to, when it works out, it can, the sky is the limit, it all depends on how much effort you put in. So again, like I said, the national minimum wage is $6 an hour. They can pay a base rate of $4.50, and then the extra, like I said, makes up the $6 an hour or exceeds the $6 an hour.
What we've found, and this is absolutely amazing, is that a lot of establishments that have registered gratuity schemes opt to pay the $6 or sometimes more. So, and that's amazing, not because the minimum wage order allows you to pay the $4.50 means that you have to. So we're actually quite pleased when we see that come across our desks.
Indeed. And we have some wonderful, not just employees, but employers as well. And thanks for acknowledging that. We'll pause, though, and take this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Hey, who knows, man? We'll learn more. We'll be even better when we go to eat tonight. Why not? Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skin care, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back. And as we continue discussion on gratuities, we're speaking to the Department of Labour and Pensions, and particularly the Labour Investigations Unit, the Deputy Director for Labour, Ms. Laval Linwood, and two of our excellent colleagues, the Senior Labour Inspector, Ms. Sasha Rankin-Ricketts. Hey, man.
You did it right.
Did it right, boy. Put those two eyes together. And they brought their knight in shining armor, the Senior Labour Inspector, Mr. Dwayne Ford. I know it is great that we live in a small community, and as Ms. Laval just referenced before the break, she commended the employers, the industry, for not only paying the minimum wage, but over and above that. And we see many people in the sector making a very, very wonderful living, enjoying the connections, and hopefully by this method, more of us will be encouraged into the sector to understand that it can be a very lucrative income, It can be very rewarding, but like anything, it is work.
Yes.
You know.
And what we want to let our fellow Caymanians know, not because in the service industry, you will see an ad saying $4.50, that should be a deterrent for you. I've seen in reviewing numerous reports that sometimes the gratuities that are collected is like twice what your weekly wage is. And, high season, when I look at their take home, I was like, wow. You can make money when working in a restaurant. Like, working in a restaurant can be a positive thing, but it, like my colleague says, is what you make of it. You go and you apply yourself. Like for us, me and Miss Lowell, when we go out, we have people calling us by our name because we build relationship with service employees, service employers, and that's how you become, you bring back customers, and it's fun, and don't make it be something that you turn a blind eye to, because if you could get your foot into the door, by all means do so, because you can survive in the service industry as long as you go there and apply yourself and the funds are there. Trust me, I've seen the numbers.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think maybe for many of us, and particularly as parents who've come through that generation, we don't want our children to work there because this, that, or the next thing. And then maybe there's a perception that, well, you don't make any money. And when you know otherwise, you realize they make good money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sorry, I could share a personal experience. My son just recently got employment in tourism, and his first day, he came, it wasn't something. It's really not something that he's interested in. But he understands he has to work until he can get where he needs to be. So his first day, he came home and he said, "Mom, I made over $200 in tips," and I'm going, exactly what I'm saying. So it's there, and he presented himself in such a fashion that he was able to provide exemplary service and collect exemplary tips.
And people, I don't want to what is it, kiss and tell, but my dining companions, we go out, we sit, and sometimes it's just a few dollars on the bill, but the tip, because the server, male or female, wasn't false. It was genuine. Made the experience that much better. You can eat it anywhere with anything, but you return for the service. And it's that hospitality that we want to encourage, and maybe more of us that appreciate. Okay, great. You're not volunteering. You want to make money too, but there is money. You just need to be reminded that it exists, right? I know we got a news break in a few minutes, but as we talk, I want to be guided by you. And I'm glad that you reference so many employers understanding the importance of the registration. We got a couple of, but one message that we want to maybe share with you, maybe after the break in a second, if not before. But you talked about needing to register, and if an entity doesn't have the approval, they need to, by law, not being operational. What are the consequences of having?
So I'm going to allow Miss Asha to go through that in more detail, but what I will say is that is the section in the law that carries, severe, heavy fines, ranging from $5,000 to $10,000 and or imprisonment. So it's definitely a topic that I need us to touch on while we're here, and to impress upon those establishments, particularly those that we may have already identified that are collecting gratuities without a plan, and that are continuing to do so after being advised not to. Okay,
and then we also want to sort of make it clear whether or not you, as just use a restaurant for instance, but gratuities apply to what? To restaurant, to hotels, condos, any sort of hospitality, service-based sector. Could it also apply to water sports operations? Does it in fact apply to those? The law, as Mr. Ford read, didn't specify those, but
the legislation actually, the regulation, does not include. You mentioned water sports, for instance. So what we can do is just take you through that really quickly. I think the regulations off the top of my head, and please forgive me. Food and beverage facilities and services, nightclubs, engineering, maintenance, housekeeping, security, those industries. The regulations specifies. Did I get them all? Just about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of places even take out sometimes, for whatever reason. We see gratuities, we see, different charges coming in to the bill. And some customers, just on principle, would say, well, wait a minute, no, fellas say he got charged for a takeout fee for the container. And he's like, really?
Oh, wow.
And it isn't the amount for some people, it's the principle.
Absolutely.
And it's just little things that I think we need to sort of understand how it works. It's gonna be fun, eh?
And one of the areas that I want to make sure people understand is that people of managerial levels should not take part in the distribution of gratuities. So because you're a manager, you're really collecting, say, $10,000 in a salary. You shouldn't be taking part in a gratuitous scheme for your service employees. So that is one of the things that we also make sure happen or does not happen, that when they provide us with that report, that no person of a managerial level is included on that report, because they should not be taking part.
All right. If it's helpful, maybe when we come back from the break, we talk about the word manager, and maybe we could use either a hotel or a restaurant. So we come in and we're probably familiar with the restaurant, the people in the kitchen, different titles, there's service staff, and I'll use the word busboy, maybe there's a different term these days, and the serve staff that comes across the service and the like. But then there's also a person that meets us as we enter. There's also depending on the establishment, all sorts of different people.
Right.
At what point, the word manager would apply to that employee, and also, to the kitchen as well. As the sous chef, as well as the, maybe we could talk about some of that if that would help us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're going to pause and take a break. Hey, who knows? Talking about gratuities could be much fun. It's just not making me want to go to eat. All right, stay tuned. We'll talk today.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Let's read the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Cayman Islands Customs and Border Control Service confirms that at approximately 9:15 on April 24th, a marine vessel with 15 male migrants arrived in Cayman Brac. CBC Director Charles Clifford says a multi-agency meeting was convened yesterday morning to discuss the recent migrations and strategies to effectively manage the situation, as well as mitigate the associated risks. In international news, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made a defiant speech at a military parade on Monday night, vowing to ramp up the country's nuclear arsenal. The parade, to mark the armed forces' founding anniversary, also displayed banned intercontinental ballistic missiles. In March, North Korea tested its largest known ICBM for the first time since 2017. It sparked wide condemnation from the international community. The U.S. also imposed several sanctions on the country after the test. The war in Ukraine is set to cause the largest commodity shock since the 1970s, the World Bank has warned. In a new forecast, it said disruption caused by the conflict would contribute to huge price rises for goods ranging from natural gas to wheat and cotton. The increase in prices is starting to have very large economic and humanitarian effects, Peter Nagel, a co-author of the report, told the BBC. He said households across the world are feeling the cost of living crisis. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza, open Monday to Friday 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about gratuities with the Department of Labor and Pensions, the Labor Investigations Unit, the Deputy Director, Ms. Laval Linwood, and Senior Labor Inspector, Ms. Sasha Rankin, and together with Dwayne Ford, the Senior Labor Officer. It's interesting, though, I think, that as businesses sometimes we endeavor to want to make sure we got the premises, we got the design. Let's just use hospitality and restaurants and the like, and we have all of that, the menu. But it's good to know now that some of us, as Ms. Sasha reminded us, have actually come to you and say, well, what is it we need to do to be compliant with the law relative to gratuities? I've got a bunch of questions. I've asked some prior, even gratuities and pensions, and but we're talking about definitions as to who's eligible. And every operation has somebody who's in charge, whatever title we give them. So, Mr. Ford, could you help us to appreciate who classifies what is sort of defined as a server, a cook, a manager, whatever the definitions are, sir?
Okay. So first off, we'll start off with who's actually eligible to collect gratuities. Now, as we've said before, only establishments who have actually registered and have gained approval to collect gratuities can collect gratuities. Now, those establishments who have whose managers and directors and supervisors are actually not eligible to partake in that distribution of the gratuities. Those people are people who are in control. They make the decisions and so forth. Now, who can actually partake in the distribution is the service employees, for example, the servers and so forth. The service employees, basically definition means an employee of a service employer who is within the class or description of the employees who has been, prescribed by the regulations. Mm-hmm. Now, again, the service employer is basically the establishment itself. Those establishments or people or businesses who carry out the business in relation to like hotel, condominiums, restaurants, licensed premises, or other entertainment, who, as I said, have been registered and approved to collect gratuities.
Now, with that, and maybe not to be dismissive of the challenges potential of enforcement, but whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a hotel or condo, let's maybe take hotels and condos. The team that comes in to clean the rooms and that bring the food and in the restaurants and like would probably be easy to identify them as being eligible for gratuity. But there's probably some supervisor. Forgive me for using the wrong term, but let's say you got the housekeeping team, and then there's a senior housekeeping staff member who helps with the shift schedule. Maybe not called manager of housekeeping, but call something else that that function is very indicative that this person sets the schedule. Is that person eligible, as is the others?
Well, you got some really good questions.
Well, thank you for passing it to me.
Actually, that has come up frequently, where you'll have an individual that is hired as a supervisor, but is also assisting in the service arena. Mm-hmm. So I know Ms. Sasha can share some additional information there for us, but again, it all goes back for me to the duties that the person is responsible for. Okay. So if you have an individual that is, yes, supervisor, however, has been placed on the schedule to conduct cleaning of rooms.
Yeah, for argument's sake,
it does happen.
Right.
The argument has been made that, because I have been placed in that position, I've completed those tasks, I am a service employee.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Are they a service employee?
Right. And we also had instances where the owner of the business also is a server in the restaurant. So when we got the application and we saw his name on his, sample report, I was like, hold up, why are you here? So, it's at that time you have those meaningful conversations with the employer and be like, okay, can you explain why you're taking part in a gratuitous scheme? And then they will break it down and say, well, because of it being a small business and only having 3 servers, there's a time where you have somebody call out sick and I have to jump in and do service for that night. So, you can't say that you can't take part for that night, but what it does do for me is you kind of put your company on a red list for me, because now I'm going to make sure that I'm monitoring that company a lot more just to ensure that everyone gets their fair share of the gratuities and that distribution is being done properly.
And this is where I think we're looking at the honesty and integrity of people. Yes. Not just an example. I was thinking back to the hotel condo, for instance, and the person who is the housekeeping supervisor, housekeeping manager, whatever we tell, and only because of the let's use a nice word, the deliberateness on the part of that team to make sure there's a little extra money coming into the coffers for that person. Yes. They may, go in and clean and check the rooms once a month. Technically, they're there. Now that may or may not happen at all anywhere, but if it is, how do you address that? Right. What about the kitchen staff, for instance? You got the head chef, you got the prep, whether it's the chef de partie, the sous chef, or whatever, the different people in this team, from the dishwasher to the busboy. How is it that the ratio that is determining, if there is one, who gets how much and who's entitled? How does that all play into the scheme?
Well, the company or the registered or the establishment that is seeking to register with us will then make that determination. We don't decide how much the front of house get, and the front of house means the servers, and the back of house is also, the dishwasher, the chef, the cooks, those sorts of people. So what happens is that overall, okay, if you're going to collect 15%, how much of that goes to the front? So it's more of an internal agreement that has to be made. And part of our registration process is we have to get a signed agreement from those service employees saying they agree to the way gratuities is being split between the front of house and back of the house.
Okay. I appreciate you. Maybe we could just revisit and looking at a few questions from our listeners. We shared the regulations, say hourly. You have 3, the hourly, the shift, and the volume of sales. And then there's a 4th one, right?
The hourly method.
The hourly. So the hourly method, the shift method, and the volume of sales.
And then the hourly point method.
The hourly point method.
Correct.
So how does that, what's the distinction the hourly from the hourly point? How does that work?
So the hourly method is done based on the hours worked. So if you worked 40 hours, then your part of the gratuities is based on your hours. The hourly point, what happens is that the employer then decides or assigns a point to each employee, and it depends usually on their position. So if you're a cook, sometimes you see a cook have 3 points. If you're a dishwasher, you'll see a dishwasher having 2 points. So you will take your hours and you'll actually multiply that by your hourly point.
Weighted hour, okay.
Right. So the anything that says the point method, they usually assign a point system, and then your hours is usually taken and multiplied by that hourly point or shift point.
And again, just to reiterate that, I think it is important to just say that's based on their skill level and position.
Right.
So you see that happening a lot in the larger restaurants, and again, they'll separate the junior staff from the senior staff, but that's an internal decision that they make. Yeah.
So that determination is internal, whether or not to collect gratuities, how much, and how it's distributed. Right. They need to be registered with your department. If not, there are offenses, as you shared.
Yes.
And if they're not registered, they should stop. Now, with that in mind, if an employee in the company, as you shared, has to sign off, each individual employee, each new hire has to be informed of the gratuity system, how it's collected, distributed, and the like. And then you be provided with the written consent. if an employee says, well, you know what, I don't feel that this is fair, I've signed up on it, but they're distributing this way and I feel aggrieved, other than addressing it with the entity that is employed, is there anything that an employee can do?
But what usually happens, or I should say, the first thing is, if you don't agree with something, please don't sign it, because then you make it very difficult for us at that point, to do an investigation, because you already signed and we made our decision to approve something based on your signatures that you provided to us, and we verified your signatures by your ID. Now, what we do is that if you're saying that you think a manager is taking part in gratuities and that you're not getting your fair share because of this person, we then go in overdrive and do an investigation, which we'll do our audits on the company, our pop-up inspections, which we do and kind of enjoy those pop-up inspections as well. So there are ways for us, and one thing that we want our listeners to understand is that while there may be restaurants out there that may be collecting gratuities that you're saying, well, we know for sure isn't registered, you may know, but if we don't know, we can't address that situation. But as soon as it's brought to our attention, our first goal isn't to prosecute. We want to help that person become compliant and, help them along the way. Now, if you refuse our help, then you leave us no choice but to seek, legal actions through the court system. And those fines are really not nice fines.
And as I listen to it, I'm thinking that this will help not only the establishment but the employees in there as well to be better protected under the law, as it were.
Yeah. So I think the goal, one of the main goals, in my opinion, during the registration process is, and unfortunately you hear a lot of times that, the legislation is not supportive of the employer. Not so, and that's the message that we want to put out there. We want to make sure that both the employee and the employer understand what the requirements are, what their benefits are, what their rights are. So in balancing that, it is important that we ensure that during that process, the employee is aware of the scheme that they're seeking to register and how that affects them. And, to take that a step further, and I don't think we've mentioned this while we've been here today, is the gratuity payouts. When they're paid, that should also be evidenced on the employee's pay statement. So sometimes that doesn't happen all the time. And then the employee is sitting there going, well, I don't understand how my salary is made up this month. So just to put that out there, employers, make sure if you're collecting gratuities, you're distributing them, that you indicate that on the individual's pay statement when they're paid, so that they know exactly what they're receiving and why.
So they get their regular pay X dollars, and then the additional is gratuities.
Exactly.
And even the added tip that was intended for that employee, if that was paid by card.
No, and that's going to take us back to what we were talking about earlier, the difference between gratuities and tips, right? So we don't want management mixing with the tips.
Okay.
So tips, management, no.
All right.
Gratuities, management, yes.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad you see that. All right, so the final break of the segment, Ms. Susan, is that what we were sharing, or a call? We have a call. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to you, Sir Ingrid.
Afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Good afternoon to your illustrious panel there also.
Good afternoon.
It's a right time for discussions like this.
Yes, sir.
This thing goes back a long, long time. Of course, we have to realize in Cayman, in a unique situation where we have no direct income tax, it's very difficult to hold people's fingers to the fire when there is no official and mandatory reporting of the salaries and earnings and so forth of the people. It sounds simple, but it makes it complicated. They are not bound and mandatorily bound to report what everybody earns to the government. And this brings about confusion. I remember very well working with hotels where in the 90s and early 90s, where you find this problem significantly, where there were supervisors taking and getting a cut in the gratuities, and there was a part of government, whether it was what I don't know what it was called, it came on the hotels, management and controls or something. And they would go around and check on these things because reports are made by the employees. Usually you find with most companies, restaurants, whatever, and hotels, that the management staff are salary paid, whereas the servers are in the service class, whether they're room cleaners, so forth, and kitchen workers and so forth would be the clear demarcation that they would be on the gratuity list, that they were hourly paid. And usually, as you said, it would be at minimum wage. Of course, out of that minimum wage, they still have to pay the mandatory health insurance and mandatory pension. But when the jobs are advertised, it says salary so-and-so plus, mandatory health and mandatory pensions as required by the government, instead of saying deductions for that, in the advertisement. I noticed that in the papers all the while. But the thing is that this management staff was not supposed to, and supervisors, collect the gratuity. It doesn't matter if you have to step in one day and do something. That's part of the job. So you shouldn't be collecting gratuity for that hour, 2 hours, or whatever it is. That's for the staff, or get a temporary in and put them on the gratuity list. Because if they say that they're not supposed to collect it, then they're not supposed to collect it. And there's where confusion arises. How many times a month can a supervisor say, well, I have to work and so forth, and I have to get gratuities? And that complicates things. But, as I said, it was always the basis that the management and supervisory staff do not get paid gratuities. The salaries are small enough as it is, as we all know. I'm not going to go into that. It's not for me to say what it should be. We know where else what it is in other countries and so forth, and that are similar always in Bermuda, for example, is $10 an hour, $12.50 US, the minimum wages. But we have to stop at somewhere and start at somewhere and control things that it is part of their salaries. It's a little bit different from tips, and it shouldn't be mixed up with tips at all. Tips are tips that the person gives to that particular server who rendered them the service that they were in there for. But or they usually leave it for the on the dresser or something at the hotels. I remember it. It was years ago for the staff there, room staff. And then the gratuities is the pool, and then it's divided up, and each person would get a person of 15 or 10 or 7.5% of whatever it is that onto their salary at the end of the I think it was every 2 weeks they were paying, or things like that at the hotels. And that's as it should be, and that should be final. But it can be a complicated, confused thing, and it can be very laborious and time-consuming to go to court with it and all that. And in the meanwhile, the poor person, as you were just saying, signed up something. They need a job, so they got to get a job, so they've got a job. When they get the job and they realize that the gratuity isn't right, isn't being shared up right, if they say something, they may lose that job, because there's hundreds out there knocking at the door also again for the same job. And this is the crux of the matter. It's a very difficult situation. Without unions and without direct income tax, it's very difficult control, because unions would set the wage price and so forth. But that's for another time. But as I said, if they say that the supervisors are not to get it, well, they're not to get it. That's it, period. That's it. If that's the agreement with the company. So it makes it quite simple. You can't get gratuities just for the staff that's on your list of whatever you present to the government. That's it. Those are the people who can collect. In this certain bracket, doesn't have to have the names, and may change the period. But this is the people who are graded for gratuity and who will get gratuity.
Yes,
the
sir.
tips share up amongst themselves, put a tip box, and it's shared up amongst them as they do in many places.
Yeah.
Okay, have a wonderful day. Thank you for giving me the time to talk.
You're most welcome. Thank you, too, for calling.
Great points, and he's spot on. I do want to just clarify, the regulations are clear. He's absolutely correct. And I'll read this just so that I don't get it wrong. All service employees who are not of managerial level, and that's defined by regulations, will be entitled to be included in the distribution of gratuities. So the definition of managerial level ensures that only those employees who are not in managerial or supervisory posts will be entitled. So the caller, we thank you for that, and that was absolutely spot on.
And I know that we had referenced it earlier relative to tips being separate and distinct from gratuities. We had a caller off here that was asking for sort of a reminder and clarification. So when a tip is given, the question was asked, and I know we asked earlier, was answered, is that to be shared up? Is that for that particular employee? Could we remind the listeners how to distinguish?
Sure. Now, again, just to be clear, the definition of tips is not included in the legislation, but the definition of gratuities is. Yeah. So if the establishment has levied a 15%, 16%, whatever the percentage of gratuities is on that bill, that amount is the pool that is distributed amongst the service employees. Okay. If I decide as a patron that the service was amazing and I want to give Mary Jean an additional 10, 20, whatever it is, and I leave that on a table for Mary Jean, that tip is from Mary Jean. What we've found is the service staff may decide amongst themselves that all the tips, money again that's left on that table, will be shared in a tip pool amongst all service employees. That's a matter for the employees. Okay, so I always, use this analogy. If it's tips, management, no. If you are including 15% gratuities on your bill that's going to be issued to your patron, then that involves management. So management should not be involving themselves in the tips that are being left on a table for the service that's provided.
An easy way also to make sure you know the difference is that when you get your bill, that total is automatically stated there. A tip is something you decide if you want to leave $1, $10, $100. So that's the big difference there is, the gratuities is automatically calculated at the 15%, the 18%, whatever percentage is stated there. But then you, as the customer, you decide, if your service was great, I want to leave an extra $100 for that person. And I also quickly wanted to note to the caller that, if there are employees that is working at an establishment that, think that they're not getting the proper gratuities, we do have a confidential hotline that they can report this to anonymously. They don't have to let us know who they are. And, that number is 945-3073. So again, we do have means of getting information if they're willing to share it. And again, we won't, say to the employer, John Brown called and tell us X, Y, and Z. We take that information and we do an independent investigation to make sure, if the information received is actually accurate or not.
And then for the Mr. Ford?
Yes, I just wanted to chime in a little bit in relation to while we're on the topic of gratuities and tips. And the last caller also mentioned pensions. What I want to clarify is that gratuities are pensionable. That is something that pensions should be paid on.
I was going to, because sometimes we probably don't understand it, even though that's being distributed.
Yes. And in that instance, the employer, I think that's the biggest shock to the employers when you're registering, because they're not allowed to take their 5% that they have to contribute to the pension from the gratuities. So although if that employee earns $200 in gratuities and they have to pay, 5% pension on that, then you have to take additional money as an employer to match that 5%. So that's, usually a deterrent. Yeah, a deterrent for especially small businesses, when they realize that, we are already not gaining from, the gratuities, but we also have to now make an extra payment because it is pensionable. And we do monitor these payments to make sure that the pension is being deducted, because the employee benefits from this in the long run. Look, we had a pension holiday the other day. And because of the pension holiday, a lot of unknown issues came out, like, pension wasn't being paid. So it is important and it is beneficial. That employee at the moment may not think it's beneficial, but when, it's time for them to get payment, now you want your pension when you didn't thought it was beneficial years before. So it is important to note that, yes, pension, the 5%, should be paid on the gratuities as well.
Okay, so it is pensionable. The tips isn't.
Yes.
It's not for management and the like. Right. And the employee should be cognizant that that establishment has a registered gratuity scheme.
Yes, correct. Right. And I think just to add to that, to ensure that employees are aware, we do have a list of all establishments that have a registered gratuity plan that is available on our website. That's also shared with immigration, so they are aware of which establishments do have that scheme. If I could, I think I just wanted to again impress upon those businesses that further, if they're listening to us today and they determine, I probably need to contact the office immediately, please do so. Again, what Ms. Asha explained earlier, we don't want to go to court. That it's a long process. We really don't want to do that. We just want to ensure that businesses understand what their obligations are, what is required by law, and that we assist them as best we can to get them where they need to be. Having said that, however, again, it's important for me before we leave here today to just reemphasize that if you are collecting gratuities and you do not have a registered plan, an approved plan by the director, you are not in compliance with the law.
And there are penalties.
And there are serious penalties. Yes. So I am putting that out there and just appealing to those establishments that may find themselves in that arena right now. So please reach out to the department. If you are someone, again, that you may be aware of an infraction or something that you're not sure of, but it appears as though something's not happening right, reach out to us. They can contact the office at 945-8960. They can contact Ms. Sasha directly via the dlpgrats@gov.ky email. There are numerous ways of reaching us. Right. We're more than happy to sit with anybody and just go through the process, because we just simply want you to be in compliance.
Correct. And, and for those who are, like my boss stated earlier, that you're collecting and not having that approval, while we do try to help you get compliant, and if you're refusing, just bear one small but big detail in mind that, we can charge and take you to court, which we try not to do. And if upon conviction, or, if they decide that you are guilty, you can have a fine, and it says a fine of, it doesn't say up to, it says a fine of $10,000 just for not registering with the department. And registering is an easy process. I'm here, my colleagues are here if I'm not here to assist with that process. Don't let us have to take you to court to pay a $10,000 fine. We're a team, and we want everyone to be compliant. We work really hard with all of our, registered entities and those who try to get registered. And even halfway through processes, some entities would be like, you know what, nah, thanks, but no thanks. But at least we were there, and they made that effort, and they made that decision at that time. But don't register with us, because we might know today. But come tomorrow, when we find out, we're going to try to help you become compliant. And if you refuse, and like I said, I don't want about it to have nightmares, but just think $10,000.
Yeah, well, you know what? You give them the opportunity. You offer assistance. Yeah, you want to pay the piper, you please. Well, we're looking forward to continued discussions in the various sort of bits that fall under your remit. Madam Deputy, any closing thoughts you may want to leave again with the listeners?
I think I preempt you there. I
Yes.
kind of started there, but that
No.
one, certainly from a compliance perspective, was extremely important to put that out to the listeners. That is an area, like I said, we don't want to scare anybody. We don't want to go to court. We just simply want to help you be in compliance. So reach out to us. Let us know how we can be of assistance. We're more than happy, again, like I said earlier, to sit with you. But if you, based on the information that we've shared today, if you do find yourself in that situation, we would strongly recommend that you reach out to us sooner rather than later, that we can help you rectify that.
All right. Well, thanks again very much, and I really appreciate it. Mr. Ford, you and your team, thanks very much, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us, Darren.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, we'll pause and take a break. When we return, we'll have a different discussion with folks over at HSA, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
Research tells us that the best age for parents to start having conversations with their children about the dangers of underage drinking is when their kids are 9 years old. Studies show that parents have a significant influence on young people's decision to drink. So talk, they are listening. The NDC offers parents advice on how to talk to their children about underage drinking and prepares you for the tough questions like, did you drink as a child? For tips, log on to www.ndc.ky. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
It's in our name. Fried chicken, it's our thing. Others may try, but we have the original. We put the extra and extra crispy. And our secret in everyone's mouth. So if we want to make the best chicken sandwich, we just need to put our name on it. New Kentucky Chicken Sandwich. An abundant triple breaded filet, premium mayo and pickles, all in a buttered brioche bun. The best chicken sandwich had to be KFC.
It's Kirk Freeport's 50th anniversary, and we're celebrating with you. If it's your 50th birthday in 2022, we have a $50 gift card for you. If you're celebrating your 50th wedding anniversary or higher, it's $500. We'll also donate $50,000 to charities and increase the rewards for store purchases too. Purchases of $500 will receive branded gifts, while purchases of $100 gain entry into our monthly sweepstakes with prizes from luxury brands. View terms and conditions on kirkfreeport.com.
We give you honor and praise, adoration and glory.
Radio Cayman.
Praise time.
Praise him, praise him.
Come and let's praise the Lord. Come and let's praise the Lord. Praise him in the morning and in the evening. Oh, let's praise the Lord.
Praise time in the morning.
Praise him, praise him.
Weekdays 6 to 6:30 a.m.
Radio Cayman, waking you up.
Rock my soul in the blues of my favorite. Rock my soul in the blues of my favorite.
Praise time.
I know he cares. He'll always be there. Oh, yeah.
Praise him, praise him, praise him.
Praise time.
Set your clock for 6 a.m. or you will miss it.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks very much for joining us. And thanks, too, for the opportunity to continue our partnership with Health Services Authority and to encourage people as we did yesterday, indirectly as we were talking about Laboratory Week, that there's a lot within the health services as employment options. And the HSA, through the Training and Development Manager, Ms. Raquel Sutherland, joins us. Every summer rolls around, but you guys have a lot of good things on. So thanks for taking a few minutes and share with us as you wish.
I appreciate you guys having us. Thank you.
So your student summer internship, right? Is that what we're going to talk about?
That's what we're talking about
today.
Because
I was made plans to talk about, cardiothoracic surgery and the new... Nah, let's get into that tomorrow. What is the summer internship program that you have?
All right. So every summer we aim to accommodate a number of students, and when I say a number, I mean a large number of students at the Health Services Authority to gain some practical hands-on work experience in really any field. I know when we think of Health Services Authority, we think, okay, well, doctors and nurses, and if you want to be a doctor or nurse, then I'll sign up for this internship program. But we really put it out there because we have such a multifaceted team that a lot of persons don't realize the different career paths, opportunities, exposure that you can have within just that one organization. So we just want to be able to support the learning of our young companions.
I remember some time ago, HR manager, and just through numbers. The HSA, as you said, we're on all 3 islands in every district.
Yes.
You cover many different types of employment, for one of a better word. And you have hundreds of employees.
Yeah, hundreds. We have thousands. We have over 1,000 employees.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Our current number is probably around 1,100, close to 1,200. So yeah, we are actually one of the largest employers on island. Definitely as a public service, we're the largest. So yeah, and we're pretty proud of that, and hope that some of these students, after having an experience with us, will actually go off study, or maybe directly after leaving school come on board.
Right. And I appreciate that because, as you shared at the outset, we think of health services and we think, the doctors, the nurses, and all that, but not just the radiologists and the like, but the people who serve, how to maintain the equipment, your team of nutritionists and dietitians to the hospitality staff, for one of the grounds, the maintenance. So any area that you have an employee?
Yeah, we do. Because we are such a large organization, we have our own IT department, so that's internal. Of course, we have to have a cybersecurity team. We have our data analysts, our business analysts, and things like that. We have our statisticians. We have our tech team. So our IT team is so comprehensive that it's broken down into specialisms to some extent as well, right? So those persons who are interested in that type of thing can also get their experience with us. You don't have to go to a firm or elsewhere. We also have our own department. And another department that's quite comprehensive, our finance department, is really, really comprehensive, and it looks at the entire supply chain. So it looks at from the time that we have interest in a product and we want to procure it, meaning that we want to explore, is this vendor better versus that vendor, and all those type of things, go through the contract process with our vendors. Then go over to our finance department, where we actually start to pay things. So most people think of accounts payable and receivable, but then if we have our procurement department first, and then that one, and then once we get the items in, then our materials management department steps in and starts to manage our so they manage and store and distribute and all those types of things. So and then we have a completely separate finance department that looks just at managing our patient finances, so collecting from insurance companies and things. So yeah, it's really good. Like when we say finance at HSA, you really have to ask the question, which part? Because we do it all. So yeah.
And I can see, as you shared, immediately some people think, okay, well, we need the finance and accounting to make sure bills are paid, but monies are collected, and the goods from the medical supplies to the equipment are also there. But what about legal?
Yeah, so our legal isn't in-house, but it does not mean that the opportunity won't present itself for it to become. We have compliance in-house, and so to some extent, obviously there's some pieces that they will have to play that will require a legal standpoint. But we definitely do have our legal team that we work with. And because as we develop policies and as we start to look at healthcare, there are a lot of pieces that do need to be reviewed every time we draft a policy. It has to go through an approval process every time we, issue contracts or change the way our contracts are structured. Then legal has to get involved. So yeah, absolutely, there are lots of opportunities for us to explore. And as we grow as an organization, we start to have to take on even roles that we didn't have before.
Right.
We have to start to create and have that in house so that our processes can be more seamless.
No, with that in mind, many schools now are May just about to start. So for some, they wind up for the summer. Exams are coming up.
Yeah.
Children are graduating from, high school and entering the next phase. Some are moving from the junior schools to the like. When is the internship program? How long does it run? When does it start? When does it end?
So it can run anything from 6 to 8 weeks. We were offering 4-week placements, and in some circumstances we're willing to still do that. But when you think of a young person who's never been, in the working world before, hadn't had any experience, they may feel that they may take some time to warm up and settle in. And so after 4 weeks, when you've just found your footing, then your placement is over. And so that's why we thought, let's make it slightly longer, so 6 to 8 weeks. Anytime between June and September. So some people may have been available in June and July. Some people may not be available till July, August. And why we've spread it out in that way is because we'll have our companion students who are currently away at university who come home for the summer and say, hey, I'd like to join the internship program. So we even have students who are coming back to participate in our internship program and have been doing that for a number of years, some of them, so that they can build their portfolio while they're studying. So anything from high school all the way up to university, we are accommodating.
All right. Well, how do you apply? I mean, and is there a deadline? But how do you apply for the internship?
Yeah, so there is a deadline, and we are fast approaching. I think this is sort of our final call. It's the final push, go, and get it done. 30th of April is our deadline. Our website, www.hsa.ky, you'll find that we have an electronic form on there, and it has all of the information that you would need in order to be able to apply. So it'll tell you, right, a little bit about HSA and the internship program. It'll tell you who's eligible, so you'll at least know before you fill out the form if you're eligible or not. It'll tell you the registration open time deadline. It'll tell you the period for the internship, and it'll tell you everything you'll need to be able to complete the application form. So all the documents that you'll need to submit. It's all there on our website. The form is automated, and so you can sort of upload it and just it comes straight to us.
And then when you talk about eligibility, so who is eligible, just generally speaking?
And while we have a number of students that may be interested and maybe in future we'll be able to accommodate them, we really are focusing on our companion students. And so that's one of the eligibility criteria. So you must be companion or have the right to be companion. You have to have completed the form online and attached the relevant documents. You need to be at least 16 years old. Now, we have some very, very enthusiastic kids, and when we go out to the job fairs and things, they'll say, oh, but I'm 15 or, I'm 14. I really, really want to do it. And we do tell them to sort of just hang on for a while. And there's a reason for that. I mean, when even if you're not on one of our wards or one of our clinical units, the type of exposure and the things that we deal with in terms of people not feeling well, and it's not always sort of gory like you see in movies, right? But there are some things that they may be faced with that may be challenging for them to process if they're too young. And so we do encourage them, as well as the level of maturity, to be able to get through a work day. So we do aim to have students meet the age requirement, the minimum age requirement of 16 before we'll consider them. A genuine interest in healthcare, or at least in a field that we offer. So some students will say, oh, I want to be a a pilot or or something, and then they want to do their experience with us, and that's fine. But then the experience that you would gain might not be as helpful, or you may not be as excited, or it may not contribute to your long-term goals. So we hope that they have an interest. And then of course with the current climate, we have to ensure that they're safe, so we need to ensure that they are vaccinated. So those are the basic requirements.
So if they're not vaccinated, they can't come?
Not ideally, and that's because HSA is on the forefront of COVID management in the community, and so while it does not completely remove the likelihood that you could have that transmission, it does reduce the likelihood, and we want to make sure that if persons are going to be on our site,
they must take it to have it.
We want to be able to ensure they're going to be safe.
Okay. And then so 16, and then Caymanian. So the people who are on a work permit or permanent residents, they're not eligible?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If that was the case, then we would be bombarded. We wouldn't have enough we would have more interns than staff. And we have to ensure that we can give them the support they need while they're on placement. And of course, with that being said, we've decided we'll prioritize our Caymanian students.
So Ms. Raquel, after this quick break, can we maybe talk a little bit about potential what students can expect when they're on it and the like? As the HNC Summer Student Internship Program, the 30th, which is Saturday, is the deadline. So we want to tell you how to get. In the meantime, hop on to hsa.ky if you want some information. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Subway makes it easy for you to stay on top of your health and wellness goals with our Fresh Fit menu options. Choose from 5 Fresh Fit Subway sandwiches with only 450 calories or less per 6-inch sub. Turkey breast, veggie, oven roasted chicken, Black Forest ham, sweet onion chicken teriyaki, or make your 6-inch Fresh Fit sub into a salad or wrap prepared with fresh vegetables. For a full menu and nutritional information, visit subway.ky. Subway, eat fresh. Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Raising children is costly. That is why each year the Ministry of Education provides, through its Early Childhood Assistance Program, funding to assist Caymanian children to attend an early childhood center. For early childhood funding assistance, call the Early Childhood Care and Education Unit at 244-3155 or 936-0267, or download an application form from the Ministry's website at www.gov.ky/education and email the completed form to ecap@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we're talking to the Training and Development Manager over at HSA, Ms. Raquel Sutherland, the HSA student internship for the summer. Age 16, is there and we're talking students, but if you reference, some university students, is there sort of a maximum age that or once they're a student at university somewhere here or elsewhere?
Yeah, no, there's no maximum age at the moment. So as long as you're currently in full-time education, whether it's high school and you're over the age of 16 and still in high school, or you're locally or studying overseas, and you're a companion student and you're here during the internship period, then yeah.
So 16, Kimanya, and full-time student.
All right, but and to have completed the application form, because we won't know who you are.
You're on the same page as me. Well, the web page. So you have to complete the application.
Yeah, absolutely.
HSA.ky for the requisite sort of criteria
and
and
all
documentation.
The information is in there. It'll tell you who's eligible, what you need to provide us, and.
All right. Yeah. Is it then that the prospective student who is, satisfy all the criteria and knows, generally speaking, I want to be somewhere in the health services sector, not quite sure whether it's a physician or a nurse practitioner, or whether I want, just work in the field, in one of the labs, whether it's forensics or otherwise. Does the student need to have sort of a refined interest in a particular area, or just a general interest in health services?
You know what's funny though? Even though they're young, they usually know exactly what they want. They'll come and they'll tell you something very specific. Sometimes you have to look it up and you're like, what is this? But yes, they usually know what they want to be, and so they'll say, I want to be a pediatric nurse, or I want to be a medical technologist, or whatever it is. Some of them will just have a general idea. I have one at the moment that said, I want to do something administrative, is what she said. And then she sort of expressed about, marketing in some of these departments as opposed to some of our clinical settings. So they may give us a general idea of where their interest lies, but for the most part, they usually know exactly what they want. If they don't, then we'll sort of have a conversation, because we do ask for a personal statement as well, so they'll give us a little bit of background, but we'll sort of have a conversation and try to place them in the unit that would be the best fit.
Okay, so whether the student knows, she comes in, she says, listen, I want to be, a pediatric physician, and I want to specialize in a particular, acute care, even though she's very, very specific, or the one that's generally, I want to be within the health services authority.
Yeah.
And they're there for, say, 6 weeks. Are they given an overview of many departments, or are they sort of relegated to the area of expressed interest?
They're usually not rotated, just because there's so many of them, and we place them in the area that they're interested in. But the way that the HSA works is that you don't have to rotate to have experience with all the units. And I say that in saying that we have to work together as a collective team, right? So our multidisciplinary approach crosses over. And so you could stay stationed in one department and realize that you know about 5 departments by the end of your placement, because we've asked you to go over here to take the paperwork, or we've asked you to sit in on this meeting, or we've, and so your engagement, go with this patient who's going from one department to another. So it does cross over, even if you don't move around.
Well, I know you're going to hit back at 2 o'clock to, your work, so we want to make sure that we get absolute, the most benefit of your time. But the work day for the intern, what sort of, not only what the day would look like, but when does the day start and end? Is there anything that could help us to sort of guide our students as they're making their determination for their summer internship?
Yeah. It depends on the unit that they're placed in. The manager will tell them the days and the hours and things that they'll need from them. So so if they're placed with physician services, for example, you'll have a physician who may be in clinics on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday afternoon or whatever, and then they're in surgery for 2 days a week, and then they're administrative for another day. So they may tell that student, okay, come to clinic on this day, and then after that you go with the other physician on that hour. So their day may sort of move around. It may be a mix of things.
Real world life.
Within that department. Absolutely. So it's not going to be a black and white sort of 9 to 5. Well, it is for most of them, but they may vary depending on the department that they're placed in. But the standard would be 8:30 to 5 is the hours that most of them would be there.
And this is where, sort of formalized internship programs help us as students to get an idea. I think I like this, let's see what it's like, and it may help to inform us. Applications are of this nature, I think.
We have gotten a lot so far. I'm sure the applications won't stop rolling in until the deadline, which is great. I mean, every year we take 100, give or take 100 students, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. I know that last year we had to take half the amount we typically do because, you know, of the COVID restrictions. But, you know, we're ready to go again. We're learning to manage this thing well. We understand more about it now. We are living with it and making sure that we are keeping ourselves safe as we continue to do our duties. And so, you know, we'll encourage our students to do the same. And we're just wanting them to get right in and
definitely. Now, would this also, not just on Grand Cayman, but on the BRAC as well? So for internship opportunities over there as well?
Absolutely. Faith Hospital have they've identified the number of students that they are able to accommodate, and they have done so in the past as well. Our students, again, can be placed in any of our units or departments that have the capacity to take them on. So depending on what we're faced with, we'll have some departments that unfortunately can't accommodate one summer to another. But as long as there's they've identified persons who can work along with those students and they have the availability to take them. Some departments will take multiple. I have a manager that sent me back and said, "Yeah, Rax, I'll have 10." Right? and they'll specify these are they'll send me a list. These are the responsibilities or the duties that the student will be able to participate in or to have exposure to. So it's not just a sit in the corner and file some papers, but they've actually said, you know, when the student is placed with me, they can go to clinics, they can do some filing, they can attend a weekly meeting, they can and they will give me a list of things that the student can and will be able to be exposed to during their placement.
It's so beneficial to that student. Now, on Grand Cayman, is it just at HSA, or would the student potential internship extend to the district health centers?
So the district health centers HSA includes the district health center.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. Any of the managers that have staff and capacity to be able to accommodate, they will absolutely be able to be there. We have so we talked about IT and thing. We have our biomed department as well. I always like to try to talk about them because a lot of people don't know that they exist. The other thing that I like to mention is our and you kind of touched on it a little bit, our facilities team. Some persons feel that you have to be in formal education and getting ready to go off to college to get a big degree, a bachelor's or an associate's or a master's. But if you have or are thinking about doing a certification like a vocational course, we have electricians, we have plumbers, we have AC technicians, we have groundsmen, we have all of those roles, and they all need to be filled at one stage or another. And so if students feel like, hey, you know what, I'm a hands-on person and I'd rather do this, then those opportunities are absolutely available as well.
And this is why I share, you know, I'm glad you shared with us that you have 1,000+ employees. It's across, you know, all 3 islands and all the districts. So for that individual that isn't perhaps want to be in healthcare but doesn't want to be, you know, an ER physician or any of that, the equipment that's being used needs people to maintain it and know how to take care of it. The hospital itself, you know, the groundsmen, all the technicians, we want it to be tip-top shape, right?
Absolutely.
So here's an opportunity to grow your career. All of those areas are out. So that fellow who's thinking, you know what, she wants to get into electrical, plumbing, you know, the internship opportunity is there to work with your facilities team.
And some things don't sound the way or aren't experienced the way they sound. Our public health team is right now been a prime example of that. Most people may not understand what public health means or what it was until the pandemic hit, right? And all we could hear about was public health. And so we really want students to be able to, from their experience, gain a greater understanding of some of those things.
All right, well, we will be more than willing to, between now and then, to just give a continued reminder. You know, the deadline is Saturday the 30th, hsu.qa. So, Ms. Raquel, thanks very, very much, right? For sharing with us, and your presence always very informative.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having us on board. We really want to make sure that this opportunity is available to, and they can hear about it, and parents can hear about it, and sign their kids up, and and just get them to get some real hands-on experience. And I always leave this to the very, very end because I never want it to be the first thing or the first reason why you apply. But our summer internship program is a paid internship. And that's always helpful to have a bit of extra change in your pocket to buy the fancy things that your parents might not buy for you.
Go. And if you don't want the money, I can give it to good charity. The Susan Benevolent Fund. We're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Follow Radio K-Man on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio K-Man.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio K-Man's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Department of Education Services reminds parents and guardians to visit the DES website schools.edu.ky/pages/schoolregistration.aspx for the complete list of supporting documents, student registration guidelines, or to register a student for the 2022-2023 academic year. For further inquiries, email the registration team at edu.registration@gov.ky. In international news, the first African American to serve on a presidential security detail is among 3 people to have been pardoned by U.S. President Joe Biden. Abraham Bolden Sr., 86 years old, was convicted in 1964 on bribery charges. The White House also announced that the prison sentences of 75 others, most of whom were serving time on low-level drug offenses, have been shortened. The U.S. Constitution grants presidents the authority to forgive convictions or shorten sentences. Tuesday's grants of clemency are the first of the Biden administration. A stone statue of an ancient goddess of beauty, love, and war has been found in the Gaza Strip. Hamas, the Islamist militant group which governs the tiny Palestinian territory, says the head of Canaanite deity Anat dates back 4,500 years to the late Bronze Age. The discovery was made by a farmer digging his land. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio K-Man on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio K-Man app or log on to our website, radiokman.gov.ky.
Tune in Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. for the Daily Sports Report, covering local, regional, and international sports. Proudly brought to you by Dr. Wayne Porter, offering a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. Call 946-9020 to book your appointment today.
Are you a Caymanian status holder, or a resident of the Cayman Islands who is interested in enhancing transparency, accountability, ethical standards, and promoting awareness in public bodies? If you are civic-minded with the highest level of integrity, the Commission's Secretariat, on behalf of His Excellency the Governor, welcomes your expression of interest for appointment to the various statutory commissions. For more information on the commissions and candidate qualifications, visit the Commission's Secretariat website at www.commissionssecretariat.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And as we continue the discussion, we're recognizing that the Health Services Authority, and I still call the Georgetown Hospital and then the district health centers, the notion that, and I'll say this hopefully as informed and as respectful as possible, that my personal view that one of the main pillars in the society is a very vibrant, strategically positioned healthcare system, the health services that we provide to our people. And in this country, many of us don't really appreciate whether it's the public facilities we have or even the private physicians. We have a robust system in this country.
Absolutely. I mean, again, HSA prides itself on a number of things. Definitely being the first provider of healthcare in the Cayman Islands. I mean, we, like you said, were Georgetown Hospital, and we still are. And when people refer to us as that, that's fine, because our aging population that was there with us before even our current building and when we were a smaller community, smaller hospital, when they come back to us, if they felt connected to or feel connected to Georgetown Hospital, then when they come to us, even though we're HSA and we've evolved, we're still Georgetown Hospital together, and we want to continue to be that to them, and we want them to feel that they can still, have that same connection with us.
And I think as we see the population growing, the demand for services, and as we, remind us if you're joining us now, Ms. Raquel Sutherland, the Training and Development Manager, I just think toward the recent press releases coming out, the Health Services Authority, with expanded GP, the relocation of different services in order to respond to the growing demands.
Yeah, and adding more services as well. So even services that we didn't have before, we've added and we'll continue to add, right? And so we'll have discussions about when we have our clients or service users, our patients come to us, even the family, they're saying that this would be nice. And we take these things on board. Sometimes even something that you say in passing, you won't even realize, you see it come to fruition, you're like, oh, I thought about that. And you might have very well been the person who thought about that, because we do take value, the opinions of the public, and we try to accommodate wherever possible. So as we grow and evolve, we do aim to include services that may not have existed before, that we find that there's a high demand for.
I mean, with that in mind, we look at the urgent care, for instance.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful addition. Persons would say, I've come to GP with an appointment, and persons have come for walk-in, or we even have persons who may go to emergency room and wait for a very long time because they're dealing with the emergencies as the priority. Everyone is important, and so when we use the word priority, we're not saying that the person who is waiting longer to be seen is important, but we're talking about the urgency of the care need. And so creating urgent care means that those matters can be addressed in urgent care, appointments can be addressed in GP, and emergencies can be addressed in emergency. And so now everyone, if you're going to the right place, should have alleviate some of those challenges that you've had with wait times and different things.
And I think too, as the society becomes more cognizant, think of A&E, for instance, on a Sunday, for argument's sake, you're not feeling the best, you're not, thankfully, at that stage, determined to be in a life-threatening situation, but your option is, midnight on a Friday, or 2 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, sometimes in absence of GP being available. That's where you would end up if you're not going to a private physician.
And that's why urgent care has such extended hours, because we notice that, we pick up on the trends and the patterns. We look at our statistics and we said, hey, it's great to add it in there, but what are the hours going to look like? So you'll see that urgent care does have longer hours, which
I think 11 p.m. now.
It is, yes.
On Monday through Friday. And then 2 on Saturday?
That should be the case.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. But again, it's
and that may change as well if we see the need continuing to exceed what we are currently providing. Then that may evolve. But I won't make promises on HSA's behalf. I'll rein it back in. But we definitely do aim to respond to the needs of our population.
Well, this is what I was thinking. As you shared earlier, you have your statisticians within your department. You have people who are looking at the operational aspect.
Absolutely.
And how do we respond to the growing demands and needs of our community. So we might see, I'm just thinking, as you would in any particular sector or a company, that say, hey, our clientele is asking for this, how do we get it? Well, your interns might even end up as that
becoming a statistician. There you go. And we're collecting a lot of data in different ways as it relates to patient feedback. You'll find that you're hearing, you're getting phone calls for surveys and or survey email. And it's not because we want to bombard you with phone calls and emails, but that feedback helps us to make the service more tailored to you. And so once we get that feedback, then we are able to say, okay, this percentage of persons or this is the experience that people are having in this area or with this service, and we aim for continuous improvement. It's one of our goals.
Well, this is where I think everybody would appreciate that a country's investment in facilities, health and education, and the materials that they need to do their job, whether it's the the equipment, the drugs that the hospital would use, but in the staffing. So those potential students who are thinking "Oh, I'm not sure I want to be a physician."
Right.
Well, there's so much more that you can.
There's so much more. I always say to everyone, I've never worked in an organization that has had so many different career paths and opportunities in one place. And HSA is it definitely, at least here in Cayman. I can't think of, I could be wrong, but I can't think of anywhere else that has this many variety or variation of roles within one organization.
I can see it, and I'm glad you shared that, because I think too many times we may compare Cayman to some larger metropolitan area without appreciating that it's almost in itself this self-contained independent thing that needs to provide all of these things all the time to everybody.
Absolutely.
Wow, your job can be fun. Can be very rewarding, I can imagine.
And that's the thing, and that's why we ask for a personal statement from the students expressing, their interests and things, because you really do have to have a genuine interest and want to learn and want to help. I mean, when you work in public service, when you work in healthcare, you have to want to and be passionate about your job. And then it doesn't feel like work. And we are all busy all the time. And like I said, always looking to improve our processes, but we enjoy it. And the satisfaction on our service users' faces, our patients, our family members, our visitors, right? At the end of the day, we have to understand the importance of health. When you don't have good health, or when you have ill health and can't get back to a place where, and I'm referring to physical health, then it starts to have other, domino knock-on effects, and so your mental health sometimes now starts to suffer, and then you start to have social issues, and all these things come into play. And so when we look at our community, we're wanting to be very holistic in our approach, and our students as well, when they come here, sometimes even if they're in one department, like I said, they leave with a different viewpoint, right? They leave realizing the importance of maybe customer service, rather than this just being about, giving someone some medication, but did we sit down and have a conversation with them to make sure they understand what they've been given? And so they get to see us in all of our roles, and even the different parts of our role that you wouldn't think is a part of our role.
Yeah. And as you shared, I'm thinking that increasingly we think of customer service to be in hospitality. You go to a restaurant or a hotel. Companies way back when we talk about the after sales support, they sold you the product. But even with a physician, as urgent as that thing is, the individual suffers some injury, now needs to life, threatening injury, needs that urgent medical, care to save them. But there's still a level of compassion.
Absolutely. And I always tell our staff, I'm like, we're all customer service. We're all customer service agents or representatives, even if you're a doctor, even if you're a nurse, even if you work in back office, even if, your role is administrative. One of the departments that we are making our best effort to expand, and we've added a number of persons and we'll be adding more, is our patient experience department, because we understand the vital importance of patient experience. So it's not just about getting the practical service that you came there for, seeing the doctor and getting an appointment and getting meds, but what was your experience like? If it was positive, are you able to express that? If it was negative, are we able to address the factors that caused you to have a negative experience? Are we able to, address whatever might have happened to ensure that it doesn't happen again to you or someone else? And so, we're really evolving that department as well, so that when persons come to us, they at least know that they can be heard. There's somewhere, because, sometimes we go to places and you'll hear people say, hey, I need to speak to a manager, right? Because they want to make a complaint or something. We're making sure that persons are available to you to express positive or negative feedback, because that's your right. And we want our patients to know that that's their right, because we want them to have a good experience.
So as part of your patient experience department, would your patient advocates sort of fall under that as well? Those trained medical staff that or knowledgeable personnel that would be able to say, okay, I'm here to advocate on behalf of the patient.
What they'll do is they'll make a referral if it's necessary. So they're administrative in their role, and they're there to support, but they will then redirect or support or refer or call back or whatever the patients if there's the need for that. So that that opportunity, it's sort of the bridge between the service that you receive and any additional needs that you have.
Yeah, because I can see where sometimes, as a patient, being in a situation where you're not as comfortable, as knowledgeable with, even the terminology, what's transpiring, having someone else there saying, okay, I got your back, what the physician is telling you, she's trying to get this. Let me help you to understand it better.
Absolutely. And it could be as simple as, how do I get to this department?
Right.
All the way up to, I've had this experience and I need to talk about it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think, Ms. Susan, this is the final short break to take. And when we come back, we invite you with your question or comment in particular relating to the Student Summer Internship Program at HSA to give us a shout, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. We'll pause quickly and take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Subway is serving up a special new sauce, bursting with flavor in every bite. The new Savory Collection is a tropical sweet and spicy sauce made with a combination of spices, habanero peppers, thyme, onion, black pepper, ginger, citrus juices, and molasses.
So good.
Wow.
Sensational.
Delicious. Subway's Savory Collection pairs perfectly with our oven roasted chicken or steak sub. Savor the flavor. For a limited time, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
We give you honor and praise, adoration and glory.
Radio Cable.
Praise time.
Praise him, praise him.
Come and let's praise the Lord. Come and let's praise the Lord. Praise him in the morning and in the evening. Oh, let's praise the Lord.
Praise time in the morning.
Praise him, praise him.
Weekdays 6 to 6:30 a.m.
Radio Cayman, waking you up.
Rock my soul in the blues of my favorite. Rock my soul in the blues of my favorite.
Praise time.
I know he cares. He'll always be there. Oh, yeah.
Praise him, praise him, praise him.
Praise time.
Set your clock for 6 a.m. or you will miss it.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And thanks to Jacques Sutherland. I imagine as training and development manager, you have not just part of the summer sort of student internship program and coordinating and getting all the students on board, but there's so much every day throughout the year at HSA to ensure that the team there get the CEUs to attending and organizing conferences to ensuring that we have the best delivery.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And the experience and the process, are important. So when our students come on, we don't sort of just throw them in the deep end. This is your department. Have a good day. There's an orientation process that we take them through so that they at least have the opportunity to learn a bit about the organization and ask questions and even get some training that's going to be important for them to be able to use in their respective sections. And once they get to their section, they'll be paired with someone who they can, ask questions and rely on to support them. So we want students, especially those who might be a little bit shyer, or a parent who's listening and they think, my child would like this but is a little bit more reserved. That is absolutely fine. It's an extremely supportive environment. I have work experience students throughout the year that aren't on an internship, and you'll find that they'll come to my office and they're all 4 and 5 of them in my office, Miss Raquel, and all talking to me at once, and I'm like, okay, one at a time, and so even when they leave their sections, they sometimes will come and sit with me and ask me the questions, or whatever. So even if you feel that the person or the persons in your department, you're not sure if they understand you, or you're not comfortable asking them questions or whatever else, I'm always there to support. I can visit your section and sit with you for a period of time to support you to develop those relationships with the persons in the unit until you're comfortable, because we understand that this might be some students' very, very, very first experience in the workplace. I had a student who came for work experience, and on the morning that she was coming in, she was a little bit nervous while she was on the car ride, and the mom called me and said, we're here, but she's not quite ready to come in, and I had a chat with her, and by the end of it, she was ready to go. Okay, Miss Raquel, let's do this, So I want to encourage parents to, even if your child is a little bit reserved, a little bit unsure, may even have some nerves, that's absolutely natural. We're hoping, and I even will go as far as to reassure you that when they leave, they will definitely be more comfortable.
And I'm glad that, as you emphasized at the outset, that it's not just for, as people think about health care, it's for the medical staff. There can be all sides. Only if you wish, those who know you understand your background. But you are not a trained physician or anybody in that sector, and yet you're very instrumental in the training development and internship program within the Health Services Authority. So they could come with a legal, accounting, or other background and still find a very, very lucrative, successful, rewarding career path.
Yeah, I do have a health background as well. My background's mixed. But my most recent I guess qualification or certification is in business management as opposed to healthcare, and so it absolutely does apply. We have persons who are CPAs and ACCAs who are managers in our finance departments, and we have persons who are engineers. We have project managers and IT. So it does not have. You don't have to be clinical by any means. You have to be clinical to have a clinical role.
There you go. But I'm glad you said that. I'm saying healthcare background. I think, you have to go to medical school. That's not there.
No, absolutely not. There's so many different things. You can never have done anything in health before, but as long as the role that you are applying for, you have the background, and I keep using IT as the example. If you've gone and you've done a certification qualification in IT, then we don't expect you to also have done a background in science. What we do is we have our internal staff development plans. So while you're there, then of course we'll send you to training for, for example, the systems that we work with, or to have a greater understanding of how your IT background will merge with healthcare background. And sometimes what we even do is we will use our healthcare providers in non-healthcare roles. So, some of the persons, our health and safety manager, for example, has a clinical background, even though the role that she's doing, it's still clinical to an extent, but and even some of the people in IT, we have nurses that work in IT, but it's about having that mixed background, that merge, and sort of bridging the gap between the technical skill set or certification that you have and the clinical side of things.
And it shows how you can develop, that sort of holistic approach to things. So using the IT example, you come in, you're a very strong IT background, but as you learn more about the imagery that is necessary for the physicians and the radiologists to do stuff, you learn more, you cross-train, you get an appreciation how to manage your platform to give them what they need.
And continued professional development, like we said, even the doctors and the nurses, once you're certified, it's not, okay, I'm done with school and I'll just nurse forever, right? Yeah, you have to, and every 2 years they have to do 40 hours of continued professional development. So it's, and you can't even re-register without doing that. So it sort of forces you to always be learning, always be developing yourself, always engaging in training, always, upskilling yourself to make sure your knowledge and your skill set is current and in line with best practice. So by any means, don't think that, we've gotten in and here you go, I'll sit comfortable and no more learning for me. It's definitely continuous.
Yeah, and I think that's what, you find rewarding as people take on board their career paths. And, who knows, that the person who is now even the physician in ER may eventually transition to a more administrative role. Yeah. You can see it moving from the other direction. Yeah, that person who comes in and says, this is what I want, but I see the benefit of being on the front with the staff.
I mean, our staff will have the clinical background that's necessary to develop the internal policies, you know what I mean? Or to train the other staff, or to manage infection control. Like, all of these things are the staff that have said, I've done this for a while. I also have interest in this area. They'll do some professional development and they'll transition into another role. So if a student comes and they have an experience in one department, they thought, oh man, that wasn't for me. Still stick with it, because what happens is you can apply the next year and get experience somewhere else, or while you're here this year you might be in one department but recognize roles in another department that is of interest to you. So you might have even come there thinking, I'm hell-bent that I'm going to do this one thing, and then you realize that something else is interesting to you, and you may be interested in changing your career path.
If she doesn't mind, I mean, you've had the opportunity to interview her as you expand in the complementary and alternative medicine clinic, Dr. Erika Eubanks, a trained physician, continuing studies, developing much more specialization, and now complementing, what we do as traditional medicine with,
And I think what's great about Dr. Eubanks is that she's seen both sides of the coin, right? And so and this is exactly what I mean when we talk about transitioning from one place to the other. When you have a 360 view, world view of something, then you're better able to do the specialism that you're doing. And she's doing a wonderful job, and we're all really proud of her, and she's making such great contributions to the HSA, always have, and I'm sure that will only continue to grow and develop, and maybe she'll be a trendsetter, and other people will follow her path and her footsteps as young as she is. So that's amazing.
I mean, as we look at it, not to name drop, but Dr. Obina, likewise, he's continuing education. I don't think he'll mind me saying as a father, he's not as young in chronological years as Dr. Eubanks, but very enthusiastic, energetic, and youthful, and continuing to study and expand.
Absolutely. It never ends. If you have a passion for what you do, you will always have a passion for making sure that you continue to develop yourself so you can be as good as you can at what you do.
Right. Well, this is where I think this summer sort of internship program for our students, whether they're high school, whether they're in university, once they're full-time students, if they avail themselves, they may find, not as you shared, a very rewarding career, and one that's fulfilling.
Absolutely.
But absolutely, there will always be a demand for health services. So hsa.ky by the 30th.
Yeah.
All right.
All the information is on there. Even if you forget what I said, because we, chatted away, the eligibility criteria, all the information you need to apply, everything is on our website, www.hsa.ky.
And as you shared, it's, up to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks between June and September.
Yeah, we just want to give you, and again, it used to be 4 weeks. And if some student says, I'm only available for this 4 weeks, but I really, really want to do it, that's fine. We'll place the student as long as they've met the eligibility criteria for the period, because how we can accommodate this many is because we might start some off in the first few weeks, and then when they end, we bring the next batch on. And so that's absolutely fine if it's a slightly shorter time. We definitely don't want it shorter than that, because the learning wouldn't have taken place. You would have still been getting comfortable, but definitely aiming to do 6 to 8 week placements for students.
All right, between June and September. Once they log on to the website www.hsa.ky, fill out there.
We have to start with the form.
All right, there you go. Well, thanks very much, and we're looking forward to maybe after the internship program, you can give us either in person or by phone call a statistical update. We had X students, and just give us some feedback.
You'll be surprised by the numbers. It's always, it's really, really well received, and we get such wonderful students every year. And that's why we keep doing it, because every time we get them, and we'll even have managers saying, hey, did such and such apply again, because they were so great. And so
can I then ask, because I've been following it for the last couple of years, informally, only because, again, I say this without any intent to be anything other than respectful. Our health care sector is where we need to encourage more and more of us. And as you've reminded us, it's not just the physicians and the nurses and the medical personnel. It's all of the support services, from the accountants to the like. Could we then ask, no, we'll revisit it. When you do give us the statistical analysis, you had X students, they were in these different areas. These were the average times, ages, males, all statistical analysis, all demographics. And we want to know, of them, X% were first time, X% were there for more than one time.
But you have to send all that to me in an email, and then I'll ask my summer intern to collate that information for you. And I'll make sure I have my summer intern work those statistics out for you.
There you go. But thank you for that.
And thanks for having me.
All right, may you enjoy the rest of today. And the week be not just a very blessed and productive and enjoyable one, but one where you unlike me, with no longer access to good chocolate, so you'll have some of my absence. May the day be great, huh?
Okay,
all right. Well, join Mr. Art tomorrow for the record. Come back for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. And we're hoping to have perhaps an extended program tomorrow. We'll see how that works. They say sometimes it's easy to ask permission and forgiveness, but I'll do both. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution.